Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Melissa P. Dunn, your host of this beautiful Dunn Wisdom movement. I am the CEO of MD Marketing Network and the founder of the Manifest 90 process that really helps women to become the best versions of themselves so that they can manifest the life of their dreams. Today, we are having a conversation around fatherhood. The topic of today's discussion is fathering with love. And so, normally I have primarily female guests, but who knows best about fatherhood than men? So I have three powerful men who will be on today to share not only their experience with fatherhood, but perhaps offer some tips and suggestions as to how we may improve our relationships with our fathers and perhaps even honor the fathers in our lives. So, my first guest, I'm going to ask Mr. Hill to come on and share with us a little bit about himself, and his vision.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Greg. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm very well. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Yes, my name is Greg Hill. I am the CEO and co-founder of the nonprofit organization Our Children Have Rights.org. So the mission for Our Children Have Rights is to protect children's rights to have access to both parents equally by providing co-parenting resources. So as of now, we are definitely all about the children. And so our main goal is to make the process of custody and the child's access to both parents as easy and seamless as possible. So the way we try to do that is we try to educate any and everyone who wants to be an accountable parent for the children that we represent and that we help. So this is mom, dad, grandparents, uncles, nieces, whoever they are. We want to meet you wherever you are in the process of protecting your child's rights to have access to you. And if you want to be that accountable parent, we are here for you with our resources.
Wow, that's such a powerful conversation to have because I know now a lot of families are co-parenting and there are a lot of blended families. So, Greg, I look forward to your contribution to our conversation today. Next, I'm going to call on Mr. Merchant. Hi, come on in. Let's hear a little bit about you and your company.
Hi, thanks for having me. And my name is Casey Merchant. I am the co-founder of Magna Brain. It's an educational learning resource where we put back the fun in learning. And so we have developed a line of learning resources that parents and educators can use to unlock the minds of our children as early as pre-K. So I've been here in Fort Lauderdale, the Miami area, doing a lot of work in our schools, Miami-Dade, Broward County schools, and being a strong advocate for children and parents. And so I've been involved in the Fatherhood Task Force of South Florida, Ms. Holly Zorlin, who is the founder of that organization, to really emphasize how important it is for fathers to be an integral part of the child's learning and development. So what we know and what the studies show is that the more the father is involved in the child's life, is the greater the outcome and the academic success of that child. And so we want to help empower our community parents and our educators to ensure that whatever they can do to facilitate fatherhood and involvement in the child's academic journey, it is imperative that they do so. So I'm just excited and happy to be here to share with your audience and to help the ladies that you seek to serve understand why they must also make sure that the father of their children are very, very integral in the child's academic and learning journey.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for your work and thank you for your service to South Florida community. And our next guest is Mr. Armlock. I actually know him personally. He is one of the success coaches in a program that I founded in the city of Lauderdale called LEAP. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Dunn. It's an honor to be with not only you, but the population that you're serving. Greetings, ladies. How y'all doing today?
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your agency.
Well, first of all, I like to say that I'm a man of the people, not above, but equal. And that's what I like to say about myself, because my agency represents not myself, but the others. So Wings of Wisdom is a mentorship program. And what we do, I have a history of incarceration where I did 19 out of 21 years from the age of 17 years old to the age of 36. Didn't have a chance to be a father during that time, but a great, great woman, beautiful woman. My wife blessed me with the opportunity to be a father, and I'm a father of a 2-year-old. But before being a father, I knew that I missed a lot of things from my father. So I wanted to fill the gaps. And what I've done since I've come home roughly 6 years ago, almost 6 years now, started up an organization that we go back into the schools and mentor the youth, because the school system says no student left behind. And so our organization believes that no youth should be left behind in the fatherless gap. So that's what we do. I've done a lot of good work with Vice Mayor, as she stated, and we're all about saving lives and bringing people back to their rightful self. Thank you.
I love that. I love that. And so you bring another dimension, because we do know that a lot of men that are incarcerated perhaps are missing out on the opportunity to be a father to their children in a tangible way, and that perhaps they even had wounds, fathers who were absent from their lives too. So I look forward to the dimension that you bring to the conversation. So audience, I want to ask for your forgiveness in advance. I'm actually at Florida Memorial University right now on city business, and I stepped out of a very important meeting to do this show. So if you hear any noise in the background, disregard. So the other thing that I want you to know, audience, is that you are a part of this conversation. You're my co-host. So if you're watching, I want you to place hi in the chat and join the conversation. And if you have any questions for our guests, please chime in as well. So, gentlemen, I want you to share, if we can have everybody come on screen, and I wanted to learn from you, what was your relationship like with your father?
Well, my relationship with my father was strained, to say the least. Domestic violence is an issue that we deal with in America and worldwide, and it's sad because women are already disproportionately minimized, and then to physically minimize a woman is a travesty. So my father made mistakes such as that. Um, so I mean, to be quite honest, our relationship got better while I was incarcerated. I think that he saw as a man the need to fill a gap, and he saw the gap that, he didn't feel and the results of it. And at that time, he's a very intelligent man. He figured out he needed to get in the gap and be a father. So my relationship with my father was kind of funny. I was a very, very athletic individual, man. Get a little emotional thinking about it. But many times that I played cornerback, kick return man, punt return man, Deion Sanders was my role model in football. And every time I would pick off a ball, I'd be looking in the stands like, damn, he still ain't here, huh? Every time I would do something, I would look to kind of like the approval of my dad, and it never came. So, that led me down a path. And so that was like kind of my relationship with my father. Strained.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that. What about you, Mr. Greg?
My relationship with my father, it's been a journey, but it's gotten better lately, right? So, coming up, you don't understand why certain things happen, and your father can't tell you those things. So you have to become of age in order to really have that conversation to understand who, what, when, where, and why he was who he was to our family and the community. So a lot of times it may seem as if he wasn't there, but he was out being a community man. He was out making sure the masses have what they need. So, it's an understanding about being a father, because as we all know, it's tough out here in this world being a man and a father. But it is important to have those conversations. So without those conversations, I didn't understand what he was trying to do and who he was. But as I've gotten older, I've been able to go through my own trials and tribulations and then sit down and talk to him about certain things. And that helped the understanding of who he was earlier on for me and to me. So the relationship with my father was really a learning process, because you can learn in two ways, right? You can learn what to do, and you can learn what not to do. Early on, I learned a lot about what not to do from my father. But as
Wow.
time progressed, I understand why he was doing those things, and those lessons became very valuable. Because sometimes staying out of the way is just as good as going and solving the problem. So
Yes,
learning what
yes.
not to do and learning what to do were valuable lessons, and they put strains on our actual relationships. But coming back to it now with my own understanding, being a father, I appreciate him because I understand a lot of what he had to do in those earlier years that I may not have agreed with at the time, but I get it now. So it was a process of understanding who my father was to myself
Yeah.
and the community and the rest of our children, the rest of my
You
brothers.
know, that's so powerful. You said so much that I want to unpack in that statement, because, in fact, um, in my Manifest 90 class, we have a segment on forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And what's come up for some folks is a relationship with their parents, their
Mm-hmm.
relationship with their fathers. And so I want to come back to some of what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
But before I do, what about you, Mr. Merchant? What's your relationship like with your dad?
Well, I had a great relationship with my father. But I wanted to say too, right? There is no perfect situation. So
Mm-hmm.
my dad and my mom was never married, but I grew up in a co-parent situation. So my dad lived separate, my mom lived separate, and so I had to spend time with my dad sometime, and I had to spend time with my mom sometime. So I understand the dynamics. Of course, when I was much younger, I didn't know why this was the
Mm-hmm.
case, but this was my dad and this was my mom, and I love them both. And having the opportunity to be with them both was beneficial to me. One of the most important thing I want everyone who is listening to understand is that the child has no say in entering the world. It is imperative that the parents do everything possible to ensure that that child is being brought up and raised in the safest and the most joyful learning environment. And so I want to say, for me, I had that with both my parents, because I love going over my dad's house, because his house was completely different. He had all these things to do. I mean, it was awesome. And when I was with my mom, even though my mom was a much stronger disciplinarian than my dad in this case, I enjoyed them both. So I think for me personally, the greatest thing I took away from my dad was his willingness to work with my mom and help me as a child navigate the dynamics of their relationship. And I think if we can provide that for our children, because we are the adults, the outcome for their future is going to be so much brighter.
Do you guys think that your relationship with your father impacted you and how you're fathering now? And if so, how? I will start with you, Amlak.
So I'm a vegan, so I'm a veggie back off the great brother, Mr. Hill over there. I see you with the red, brother. How you doing, King?
All
So
right.
the brother said, like he just said, and I'm waiting for you to unpack it, Vice Mayor, because it was elegant what the brother was saying. And so for me, I'm fathering now in the opposite fashion of my father. So it's like I'm not mad at my dad for not being like I know my grandfather.
Yes.
I
Mhm.
know who he had the example of. You know what I mean? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like you got to understand those dynamics before you just be like, oh, hey, my dad wasn't. You know what I mean? So like Mr. Hill said, we get older and we understand. So my grandfather, God bless his spirit, didn't give my father the best opportunity to be a well-balanced man, by example. And so therefore, great men, but just terrible fathers. So for me, I learned how to. I'm gonna give a quick story. It's gonna be quick. I never kissed any of my nephews. Never. None of my nephews got kissed. I always around them when they were growing up until I got incarcerated. No, we're not kissing. My dad never kissed me. It's not happening. You know what I mean? You get one of these and your sister get one of these, right? And that's it. And so when my child is on the way, I tell my wife, I say, well, look, you got to understand something. I won't be kissing my son. She says, what? I said, yeah, I won't be kissing my son. And I confided with a mentor of mine that I said this. And he said, brother, you actually going to unpack the foolishness that your father gave you, and you going to unpack that on your son?
Mm.
My son was like 2
Wow.
months old at that time. Had not kissed him in 2 months. Came home, just started kissing my son. My wife was like, what's going on? And it was an epiphany. It was like an epiphany moment for me to say, hey, by nature, you're doing what your dad did, but you go the right way. So for me, it was a great thing to have that learning experience, like Mr. Hill was referencing earlier, of reverse engineer. I don't know what a good father is. Never had a great father, but I know what I had, and I know to do the opposite, I'll be great. So that's basically how I just reverse engineer.
That's beautiful. So you know the commonality between what all of you are saying is awareness and understanding. And then once you are aware of the person and you're aware of how you're viewing them and you're aware of how that's affecting your own consciousness, right? And you're aware of the choices that they made with the tools that they had, then you can begin to understand. And with understanding comes compassion, and with compassion comes forgiveness. Forgiveness of the person, and in the example that you just gave a while ago, Amlock, forgiveness of yourself. Forgiveness of yourself. And then when you do that, then healing is able to happen. And then you're able to really allow the love that's inside of you to emerge, so then you can share it with the world. You can share it with your own children.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's really powerful. And I there are women who perhaps are going through that process. We hear stories that says that a man teaches his daughter how a man is supposed to treat her. And then we hear stories of women who perhaps choose men that are like their father, who may not have been the best type of person. What advice would you give to women? Hey, good morning. Thank you for joining the conversation, Joanna. Hi, Monique. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Yes, I agree. Completely powerful. What advice would you give for women? It's a two-part question. The first part is, what advice would you give for women that's looking to heal their relationship with their father? And then the second, so let's answer that part first, and then I'll come back to my second part. Mr. Hill, you go next.
What would I advise women to do who are trying to heal from the trauma? I would say, it's about conversations, right? Go and have a conversation with them. Find out who, what, when, where, and why, if you can. And once you have that conversation, get that understanding, and then be able to release some of that trauma, be able to, like you're saying, forgive. Understanding is a big deal for me. So once I go and I talk to that person, or I talk to my father, or I talk to, the other person that may have been causing some trauma to me, or, may have had a significant role in something that hurt me, I will go and try to have that conversation to find out where they are coming from as well. Because once I can understand where they're coming from and their learned behavior, then I can understand what was trying to be portrayed upon me. And now I can get an idea of, what needs to change, and I can go on about my day and go on about, life, instead of holding on to why or what was going on in that situation. So really, I would say, try to get some understanding. It may take several conversations. Again, you have to learn people where they are and hold them accountable. And once you can do that, then you can govern yourself accordingly. But you have to be able to have those conversations and understand before you can move forward.
Yeah, that's really powerful advice. So, Mr. Merchant, watching your parents co-parent, how has that impacted how you parent right now?
Well, first thing, I just wanted to piggyback on something question you asked just now, and to all your viewers and listeners, always seek professional help. That's the first thing. before you enter or engage, because you may not be equipped with the skills to enter
Mm-hmm.
into a situation like that, because a lot of people are unraveling some of the serious trauma that was caused by their fathers. And so that is something that requires the appropriate intervention and support to ensure that healing can take place.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time we go into these situations trying to have conversation, but we don't even know how we're going to start the conversation, what we want out of the conversation, and how we want it to end. And
Yeah.
so we start to asking questions
Agreed.
out of anger, and
Mm-hmm.
to a grown man who thinks that he doesn't have to answer to anyone, or
Yeah.
whatever the case might be. So the environment must be structured in
Mm-hmm.
a way where it facilitates
The
the
conversation.
beginning
Mm-hmm.
of healing. So what I
Yeah.
would say to everyone, please, if you're someone going through some social or emotional trauma that was caused by your father, seek professional help and get the appropriate advice that you can then use to help, because it can unravel a lot of things, and it can not just hurt you but hurt other people in your family. And
Yeah.
please, please, I'm pleading with everyone. Social media is not the platform
Right.
or the place to divulge things that happened to you in your childhood. That's not the place. So I just wanted to say that before I answer your question. So
Well,
for
actually,
my,
let me stick a
Absolutely.
pin in and stick a
Absolutely.
pin in that part right there. Um, I think I agree with you. I think that's absolutely right. So then
Mm-hmm.
it's a two-part piece to what you just said, right? So first, with the women that are in my Manifest 90 program, we have a conversation about them doing the energy work within themselves
Mm-hmm.
first,
Mm-hmm.
right? To where you get to a space where now you can speak with somebody else. So kind of learning the language and examining and understanding for yourself
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you're feeling and why you're feeling the way that you're feeling, and then taking care of your own emotions first, because that's an inside out transformation. And then at some point you're willing to talk to somebody else. But the challenge too, and I agree with your suggestion, right, that it's important for us to seek support, um, despite the fact that there seems to be some stigma associated with getting
Mm-hmm.
help in our culture. So I just wanted to say that before you answer the second part of the question. And we have about like 8 more minutes for the conversation. So how is that affecting the way how you parent now, watching the way your dad parented you?
um, well, I'm married right now. So one of the things, um, because I lived it, going from one home to the next home, and sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad, you know. And I made a decision very early that I wanted my kids to be raised in a home where we both were present and we both could provide the type of support and attention that would be needed to help our children develop and grow and be successful. So because I lived it, I experienced it, I knew that was not something I wanted for my children. And so therefore that was one of the reasons why, I decided I wasn't going to have children unless I was married and I was in a fruitful and healthy relationship. And pretty much that's what I did.
Oh, fantastic. I love that. So, the thing that's so powerful about all three of you and all three of your examples is that whether the example of your father was good or bad, it really helped you to decide that word, to decide about what kind of father you wanted to be for yourself and then commit to whatever that strategy is. I think that's super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you are all fathers right now. Natasha, if you switch the screen back to me, I know that you're all fathers right now, and that you're all not only fathering your own children, but you're helping to father children in the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are being a father figure to the kids that you are serving through your work. Um, What tips or advice do you have for women who may be single parenting and trying to figure out how to raise, in particular, a man child? Amlock, we'll go with you first.
Okay. Whoa, that's a heavy question. It's done.
I know it is, but we have 5 minutes left in the show, so give me your 1 minute answer.
Yes, ma'am. So the advice that I would give to the sisters who are raising single parent, raising young men singly, I would just basically say that, you know, listen to your son, understand that, at the end of the day, you're going to do the best that you can do to raise a young man, but you have never had the experience of being a man, which is unfair to you because the man who was supposed to be there somehow, some way is not there. So it's totally unfair to you. So now you have to overcompensate to kind of like teach man lessons to a man, and you've never been a man.
Right.
So my first thing to say to the sisters who are single parents is don't blame yourself. If anything goes wrong, don't blame the father either. Just know that it's circumstances that created the situation and it was totally unfair to you. And you're not the victim, you're the victor because you did it. And we got a young man who's raised, who's strong, who might have a few deficiencies like I did and went to prison. My deficiencies caused me to go to prison. But here I am now. So regardless of what, I would say that the single mothers, you're in a situation that's unfair to you. And in all fairness, you just have to seek out good, strong men in the community who have no ulterior motive, like Brother Alton at Piney Grove Academy, who I'm working with, and many other brothers out there who can give examples. And that's what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. What about you, Mr. Hill? What's your thought?
So we always say this cliche that it takes the village to raise a child, right? I say it takes villages. So what I would say to a single mom is use your resources in your village. Have that child go get into sports or go play some football or go get into some things where he can be around other men and other boys and other men and learn those lessons that that can help him as a man. Make sure that you use your family, lean on your resources, your grandfather, your uncle, your cousins, all the men in your life. Get these men involved with their young man, especially if they are an accountable man, especially if they're a man who will stand up and who's actually done something with themselves and who's actually been positive in the community. Make sure you get that child around those men and have the villages help you raise that child. You don't have to do this alone. You're not here by yourself. There's great organizations and great people out here that will help you make sure that child has everything that he needs. Lean on your villages, use your resources. We are here for that child.
Mr. Merchant, I hear you talk about the importance of getting the father engaged in a child's education and in their socialization. What tips would you offer to fathers who do want to get more involved, whether they're living in a nuclear family or in a co-parenting family?
Well, what I would suggest is that everyone take time out to understand that when both parents are involved in the child's learning journey, the outcome for the child is going to always be better. So we should do whatever we can to make that possible. We should do everything we can to make that possible. So your child's father, simple things like dropping your child off at school sometimes, even if you don't live together, give them an opportunity to do that. Something like taking them out for lunch, taking them out for dinner. Again, the idea is that we want people to understand fundamentally that there is opportunity for us all to be successful. There's opportunity for us all to do well. There's opportunity for us all to be involved and seek out those opportunities. It doesn't take a lot. So just do simple things like that can enrich a child's life for the better. And I just hope that we see that as an opportunity to do things that is going to lead to better outcome for our children.
I love that. Great advice, gentlemen. Fantastic conversation. If we could just drop in the chat the website address or contact information for, okay, Jackie says, you guys are awesome. Great fathers. Love it. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for watching. So if we could drop the contact information for these gentlemen in the chat, perhaps a website or an email address, so that if anyone would like to get in touch with them for support or for their services, they are all three community servants, then you'll have access to that resource. So Natasha, if you can just drop that in the chat for me. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. This was I feel like the 30-minute conversation went by very quickly. This should have been like an hour-long show, right? So perhaps we'll have you back again later on in the year. Beautiful advice. Thank you.
Big
Thank
sister.
you for watching. That's your sister.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
my big little sister.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us for the conversation today.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for
Yes.
having us, Vice Mayor. Thank you for having
My pleasure. My pleasure. You dropped a lot of gems today. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Dunn Wisdom Morning Show. I think if I would sum this up, this whole idea of fathering with love is, again, create an opportunity for you to have awareness so that you can perhaps create understanding and compassion for your own parents, and then make a decision about the type of parent that you want to be in your life. And of course, if you're co-parenting, whether in a nuclear family or a separated family, then make sure that you create opportunities for for both parents to be actively involved in raising the child. And if your other parent is not around, then seek out your village to help them raise your child. So that was powerful advice from our male panel today. I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of the Dunn Wisdom Morning Show. I will be back next week, Wednesday at the same time, 9 a.m. on the same channel here on Facebook Live, and then of course on YouTube Live. And I will be teaching a lesson on how to, well, actually, you know what? I don't know yet what I'm going to be teaching on next week, but I look forward to talking to you. And remember, be kind and loving to yourself. You absolutely deserve it. Be well.